Hello and welcome back to this episode of Kaleidoscope, the podcast. My special guest today is Christian Spence. Christian, you and I have been in each other's peripheral Facebook world for 5 years now. I
At
know, I
least,
know,
at
time
least,
flies.
yeah,
I think we met through the ladies, through Joe and Lisa,
yeah,
uh, 360. Oh, isn't that terrible? I've forgotten the name. Academy, Coaching Academy,
yeah,
360 Coaching Academy.
absolutely.
And we did not recorded Zoom calls and things, but we were on live calls together,
Yeah.
and so we've kept in touch throughout those 5 years on and off. And I love to see you posting on Facebook the things, the lovely exotic places that you go to, and the things that you're doing with plants and so on and so forth. But as usual, I'm going to ask my four questions, and I don't know what story you're going to tell. Your story is your story. So the four questions are: what was life like before the change? What was life like during the change? What was life like after the change? And what does the future hold? And I'm going to pass it over to you and you tell whichever story you choose to tell.
Oh, thank you. Um, yes, so I was always a sort of happy-go-lucky child, um, almost shone too bright, and it caused unease for other people. But uh, through my um, life, I've had various experiences with near death, and that has been extraordinarily eye-opening. I was always terrified of death. And the main time when I actually went over to the other side was after a car accident when I was 20. But that then made me realize that when I was 5 and I'd had my life flashing before me, going backwards, how close I was to death with drowning in the Irish Sea when I was 5. And then after the accident, I had another drowning session when I was 24. So it did away with my fear of dying because it made me recognize there is certainly a lot more to do other than this life. So that was extraordinary. Got married late when I was 33 and ended up having 4 children. And life was dandy. And then with my menopause came the paranoia, the anxiety, and I just withdrew. I'd been teased locally for the way I spoke because people thought, they make decisions about who you are, and it made me hide away. Um, and I became mute. I wouldn't leave the house, I wouldn't go to the supermarket, and I became a shadow of myself. I was there for the children, but everything else I shut out. I've been a self-employed uh, specialist accountant since self-assessment came in 1994. So I worked within the four walls. I didn't go out to work, but I worked consistently over that time. And I kind of went into a slump and I didn't realize it really. Self-care went out of the window and I just became a shadow of myself. And it was a friend of mine who would come once a week and drag me out for a walk. And she wouldn't talk about it. She just took me out for a walk into nature. But other than her taking me out, I wouldn't go out on my own. And then one night she persuaded me to go and paint pottery, which I did. And it was while I was painting the pottery that this lady came and sat next to me, and I said, "What do you do?" And she said, "Oh, I work with natural skincare." Now, at this point, my entire body went into tingles, like all the way up and down, up and down. And it was, I now, in retrospect, recognize that it was the universe kind of giving me a slap around, like, this is for you. So I grew up. My grandmother practiced homeopathy. My mum brought us all up with homeopathy and foraging and finding the natural remedies and, working with alternative remedies. And actually, after my car accident, quite funny, in the 70s, my parents put over half their garden in London to grow comfrey, for the Henry Doubleday Research Institute, and they were doing research on the powers of comfrey, and it's also known as knit bone. So they would harvest the comfrey and put it in a bucket, and I think my dad had to go and pee on it once a day, and that's kind of how it was developed. And that was the remedy that was used because my right leg, they wanted to amputate it initially mid-thigh, but I managed to find myself a brilliant surgeon who took me on. My shin, I had 4 inches of bone missing. They built me up with metal, and I took it's called Symphotum, the homeopathic remedy, and the bone grew phenomenally, and I actually grew over the top of my concha nail. And the hospital were like, wow, we've never seen bone growth like this. And I'm like, oh, I'm taking homeopathic Symphotum. And they're like, you know. So always turned to homeopathy. And yeah, so I have a great interest in the power of plants. And I used to make my own skincare because I despaired as to what was in skincare, because 80 to 90% are made from the petrochemical industry, and we don't need those in our body. We don't need preservatives. We don't need emulsifiers in our bodies. So this lady's saying natural skincare, and I'm like, oh. And then I thought, oh, I must get involved with this because I have 2 daughters, I have a sister, I want them on a clean regime. So I did that. Now, I didn't speak initially when I joined Tropic because I was worried that I would be ridiculed for the way I spoke. And we used to have our calls on telephone before Zoom was a thing, because that was about 10 years ago. And there would be this call and it would go ping pong, ping, when people were joining and things, but I didn't speak. And then it was one person who kind of saw something in me and really had the belief in me that way before I had any belief in what I could offer. So this was 9 years ago I joined, and just found my tribe, found people who got me. And it's just been an incredible journey of transformation. I now use my voice in meditations for people. Children say they find it grounding and just makes them feel calm. And where I am now is about living for today, in the present, not worrying about what's happened, not worrying about what's going to happen, but the power of now, and finding peace in the day, and all those little glimmers that catch your eye. And there was one particular story I wanted to share, which is a story about a trip I took to Morocco. And I'd gone on a yoga retreat with some people within the Tropic team. And we were in the souk and we were walking along, and we'd gone into various jewelry shops. And there was one I was leaving, and as I was leaving, there was a ring that had sort of fallen off the shelf and was down on its side. And I kind of I went in to tell the shopkeeper that one of the rings had fallen down, and he pulled it out, and it was blue labradorite, and it just was like, this is for me. And it was a beautiful round stone in the middle with about 8 little stones around it, all kind of encased in silver. And I thought, oh, that's caught my eye for a reason. I'm going to buy that. So I bought it. And I went back to where we were staying, and I thought, oh, well, I'll look it up. So I looked up blue labradorite, and it was all about transformation. It was also the Pisces stone. And so there was very many reasons why I should have that ring. So I wore it for a year, and I went back to Morocco the following year. But in that time, it had fallen off my finger a couple of times, and 2 of the kind of rounded stones had lost their top. So I went back to the same shop and I said, look, I bought this last year. I've dropped it a couple of times and a few of the stones are damaged. And he said, oh, that's not my fault. I say, no, I'm not saying it's your fault, but I wondered if you could replace them. Anyway, so I left it with him, came back later in the day, and he said I couldn't find any blue labradorite. And I said, oh, well, can you just fix it with anything? Again, I went away, came back the next day, and he put a little black stone and a little green stone in the holes. And it just felt so right for me because I had been so damaged in my 20s with the car accident. Half my face, just extraordinary. I luckily was near a plastic surgery hospital and they fixed that up on the night, but it was the rest that took months to years actually to fix. But so to me, it was a symbol of that, like that Japanese art of mending china with gold. There was that feeling that you had this ring that wasn't perfect, but it was a story. And that's how I kind of feel about all my scars and the traumas I've been through. So it was, and then I lost it for a while. And I thought, no, that's right, because I've been through that particular transformation, and it needs to now go to somebody I felt the right person would find it. So that was beautiful. And then my husband is a very brilliant Vedic astrologer. And because I know the minute I was born, my chart is completely, it's absolutely to the day. And I went in a year ago, I went into a period called K2. And K2 is, I just had to write it down because I knew I'd forget, the south node of the moon. And it's also the dragon's tail. So you can imagine that if you didn't realize you're getting into K2, life becomes a bit chaotic and almost you'd want to go and hang out in a monastery in Tibet or something. So he was able to warn me that I was going to go into this period. And the weird thing is that in the last year, since I started, I've been through inner child work. I've done just so much development and also psychic development, and so I'm embracing the change, as it were. So again, but I feel we never arrive. We're constantly evolving, and that's what makes life so exciting. And when things don't pan out as you hoped they would, they're panning out in the right way because the universe always has a plan and we can't see the whole picture. And it's always great looking back. Oh, well, that didn't happen because actually, if that had happened, that would have happened. And so it's all about letting go, surrendering, allowing, and yeah, going with the flow in the boat down the river, not trying to wade up against it. So that's where I am. And so with Tropic, it again, because I handed it over to the universe, law of attraction, all these beautiful modalities, and I carry on doing my accounting, but the business keeps going in the background and, have about 190 people in the team. And I just love empowering people, helping them set up in their own business under their terms to fit in with their life. And that's what I'm all about, really, and helping people with fear, anxiety, building confidence.
Fantastic. Thank you very much indeed. Um, there's so much in there, Christian, so much in there. Um, I quite agree with you with the endocrine disruptors.
Mm.
So I use I'm looking for it on the, yes, I know a frankincense on the table at the minute, but
Love
we've
it. That
inundated.
powers up every other oil as well.
Yeah,
It sort of
it's
gives it
it's
an
now
edge.
empty, unfortunately. But we've lots of flies this year because of the heat. So I have citronella, and I
Oh,
keep
perfect.
wafting the citronella and lemon and doing all. Um, And the oh, there it is there. I was looking on the wrong side. Who sent me the lovely citronella to get rid of the.
Gorgeous.
So you're not hurting the flies, but they're just
Yeah.
they're not in my house the way they are in other people's.
Yeah.
And maybe and I use vegan virgin coconut oil as my moisturizer, and it comes in a
Beautiful.
glass jar, which I know glass. plastic recycling, it can be as hard on the environment to recycle glass, but to me it's much more natural,
Yep.
you know.
Yep.
So I'm maybe not into it in the way. And the only sun cream I can use, because I would have said I was allergic to sun cream, the only sun cream I can use is Tropic.
Perfect. Love
All
it.
the other ones,
Well,
all the other
because
ones
it's
bring
all,
me
I
out
mean,
in a rash.
people have intolerances to natural products. Like my daughter, her tongue tingles if she eats kiwi. There are
Yeah, so
people,
does my
yeah.
sister. Yeah.
So even natural things, people can have an intolerance. But I feel products you're putting on your skin, you should be able to eat
Yes, absolutely.
because it's going in.
Absolutely. Yep. I quite agree. Um,
And never
so I
mind the
looked,
damage being made to the environment, because a
no,
lot of sun
absolutely.
creams have oxybenzone in, and
Yeah.
one drop of oxybenzone in an Olympic-sized swimming pool, if that was full of coral, it would kill all that coral.
Yeah.
And people are slathering it on, going in the ocean. Places like Hawaii now don't allow sun creams with oxybenzone, but there are other, ingredients like triclosans, phytolates, parabens. They're being found in marine mammals, and those have only got to them because of what we're putting on our body, washing off down the plug hole into the rivers, into the oceans. I mean, one of the worst is liquid silicone, which is in so many products. Oh, I've got lovely shiny hair, but it's plastic, liquid plastic. And we've got to put a stop to these toxic chemicals entering our bodies, entering our environment, damaging, and that's what Tropic excel at.
Yeah. But not only that, when you um put it into, so for me, it started with well, it started years and years ago. I've been using lavender from ever I was a child. But when I'm doing weed killing and stuff, I use vinegar and dish soap and salt, because whatever you're putting on your skin and in the shower and going into the water, or you're putting out in your garden, is going into the water table at some
Yeah,
point, and then
yeah,
you're drinking it. And because there's no way the filtration system that we have
yeah.
ever filters out all of that stuff. It can't.
No, and
So,
water goes round and
yeah,
round and round because you think it evaporates, comes down as rain, and
yeah,
it carries the shadow of whatever's touched it.
yeah. And so for me, it's that it's not nature and us, it's we are a part of nature.
Mm.
And so if we're looking after ourselves or we're looking after nature, we're looking, if we're looking after nature, we're looking after ourselves, and we're looking after ourselves, we're looking after nature. But anyway.
Yeah.
So that was the whole endocrine disruptor thing. I just thought that was, yes, absolutely up my street and rings my bell. Um, Fascinated with three near-death experiences. Like I said before, our very brief chat before the call, I have nearly died three times, but I've never had the experiences. It has just been a slow decline into. So to have the experiences of going to the other side or nearly going to the other side and seeing that there is so much more. Hopefully you felt that unbridled love. I can't even
Yeah.
the abundance of love, whatever,
I mean, the word
whatever.
the
I
word
don't have the
I
words for it.
use is bliss. It was just like bliss because you imagine I'm my whole right hand side is shattered, and the initially the pain isn't there, but it builds up, and I just
Yeah,
kind of gave up. I couldn't see out of my right eye because that eye had been sliced, and yeah, I gave up. They wouldn't let my parents in, who'd driven 2 hours to come and see me. And it was only as they approached, they realized the gravity of it because the roads were closed. And they wouldn't let them in, wouldn't let them in. And then when they thought I was going, they let them in. But it was when I heard my mum's voice. So I went for what happened to me was my life going backwards, all joyful things, all kind of happy, kind of thinking fun fairs and everything joyful. And then into this black tunnel, all pain gone and just shooting at a breakneck speed and seeing this white light and just heading to it. And um, at which point they let my parents in. And the minute I heard my mum's voice, I had this kind of moment of do I stay in the bliss, or, and kind of a knowing of the pain that I would leave, I came back and I was burbling. So I was like explaining what I was seeing. And my mum knew what was happening. So she took over, because in all that time, it was solstice, it was near Stonehenge, there were loads of druggies. It was just a chaotic night in A&E. And so my mum basically took over and was like, we need plasma. She just took over. She was, before they'd let her in, she was holding people's arms, being plastered. She just always not reveled in sorting out a medical situation, but she'd always kind of brought us up looking for alternative remedies, and it's just a really big interest for her. And she started things being, because I'd been left under a horsehair blanket, felt like a horsehair blanket, all naked, everything cut off me, and I was in shock, so I was shaking like this, and they were just busy. And I said, I've got contact lenses, to the girl, can you take them out? And she said, oh no, I don't like touching eyes. So when my mum came in, I said, they're not going to operate on me unless you get my lenses out. So my mum had to fish my contact lenses out, and this eye had been sliced along the top. So, it wasn't an easy job, but she rose to the occasion. Unbelievable. So I had
Fabulous,
this
mother.
sort of weirdly lucid, but yeah. So it was at that point I realised. So in Ireland, I was on a harbour, and we were crab fishing, and I got chased by a crab, and I walked backwards. I was only 5, and I had Wellington boots on, and I went down like a brick. And my mum jumped in. It was just too deep for her to lift me. But I had my life going backwards. I remember just all the little visions of it. So it was only when I had my car accident that I thought, oh, actually, I was closer to death than I realized when I was 5.
And the fascinating thing for me then is that you nearly drowned again. So how are you with swimming now?
I'm fine with it. I have tremendous respect for the power of the
Of water.
sea. Even
Hmm.
brilliant swimmers, the sea has its
Yeah,
own idea about what it's going to do. So you
yeah,
do not mess around with the sea.
yeah, yeah.
So that was down in Cornwall, and it was my first time having a go at surfing. And I had a boogie board, and I was in Constantine Bay, and we were playing around in the waves. And I was on the board, and I think I got in what they call a rip tide, but I wasn't aware that's what it was at the time. So every time the wave came in, rather than going forward, I was being dragged out.
Yeah. Hmm.
And then I started sort of spinning on the board. And again, I started having those visions. And I was with a group, and the guy who was close to me, I think, called the guy on the Malibu board who came out, like, his proper sort of tousle, blonde hair, real perfect sort of Cornish beach guy. And he just came out on his board. He picked me up by the mid arm and pulled me up, put me on his board, took me onto the coast, and I was kind of pumped. And we saw him in the shop a few days later. I was just like, oh, I'm so grateful. But just the power of the sea, it just decides what it wants to do with you. And what was funny was they were like, oh, that was nothing. Cecil Parkinson's wife, who was a MP at the time, had been pulled right out, and they had to get helicopters for her a few weeks before I had my little twizzle in the waves. But what was interesting is about 2 years ago, I was driving up the M11, a motorway near me, and the big London circular motorway, the M25, where that crossed. As I went up the M11, I had a blowout, a tyre blew out as 2 lanes
Scary.
joined. So I was in the left-hand lane of the 2 lanes coming up, and then 2 more. And I had a blowout, and somehow, with all these cars accelerating to join the M11, I got across to the hard shoulder. I do not know how. And then it was about 6:30 at night. I was standing on the hard shoulder waiting for the AA, and you have to get out and stand on the other side of the crash barrier. And the sun was going down and the birds were tweeting, and I was getting quite cold. Anyway, so I just started shaking a bit. Anyway, the AA guy arrived. He was just like on it, changed the tire, and I was on my way about 20 minutes after he'd arrived. So he did a brilliant job. I drove up the road and I stopped at a service station because I just felt very perturbed. And I had a croissant and a cup of tea, and I had to get back in the car to drive home. And I found that very hard. Drove home. By the time I got home, I was just shaking. And it kind of triggered me to realize I hadn't dealt with my car accident from in my 20s, because that was a kind of physical trauma. It wasn't mental. And I kind of felt it's almost an easier thing to overcome than a mental trauma. So it wasn't something done to me by somebody. It was an accident. So I felt I'd put it to bed, but it triggered other things, and then I started again on the next mission of, right, I need to deal with this trauma. So there've been things that have kind of triggered the need, and then the resolution has appeared. The teacher appears as I get to the point of what next, and I find that fascinating.
And it is that thing of the teacher arrives when the pupil is ready.
Yeah.
There's no point in the teacher coming before you're ready to hear.
No.
And that's why, for a lot of the work that we would both, for you as well, teaching people about fear and empowering women, until they're ready, there's no, because
Totally.
we can preach this stuff all day long to everybody. But if they're not ready to receive it, if they're not ready in a place to do the work,
Yeah.
because I don't know about you, but for me, the healing trauma, and I don't know whether you've been following my journey or not, but I do hypnotherapy for PTSD, and I've embraced this program, which is all the tools, meditation, breathing, and so on and so forth, to help people come through burnout and stress and so on and so forth. I can teach you all of that, but if you're not ready to do the work, then you're not ready to receive the message. And so it's just an academic exercise then.
Yeah.
I'm giving you information, but you're not ready to. And it's only when we're ready. And sometimes it's about our brain, body, amygdala, whatever, soul trying to protect us because we're not ready. It's too soon for
There's
us
something
to.
else that needs shifting before that particular. But
Yeah,
I believe all our answers are within us.
yeah,
And
no,
it's all
that's.
about going in, and people go, oh, they did that to me, or she triggered that. Actually, you need to turn it on its head and say, thank you for triggering that. Not to them, obviously. They don't need to know, because they're on their path, you're on your path. They're probably blissfully unaware that something they've said has triggered something that happened when you were 5 that made you feel X, Y, and Z. But you've got it's within you to answer it. So it's not, oh, how dare she? It's actually, oh, what's that bit of work I need to do on myself to strengthen me and protect me and empower me to get through this. What's it teaching me? And I also feel it's progress, not perfection, in everything you do, because you can hold back for fear of it going wrong. But actually, failure is not a failure in a bad way. Failure you learn from, and it's a new lesson. And there is no thing as failure, really, because it's
No.
teaching you something. And with all this divine timing, you're absolutely there's a time that there are things you can set, but until the time is right in the bigger picture, you can strive, but it should flow to you. And it's about surrender, isn't it?
And that's my word for this year. Strangely enough, when we said that
Who is
just
it?
before we came on, that's my word of the year is surrender. And I think that part of the difficulty is that when we're in the messy middle,
Yeah.
when we're in that difficult time for you, when you were lying in A&E, or when the wave was tumbling you, whichever, when you were going through, and I get that anxiety, paranoia from menopause. I was experiencing burnout at the same time, and it was only, as you say, looking back, that I went, aha! If I wasn't going through menopause at that point, it mightn't have got as bad as that, or
Yeah.
it was a whole combination of things. But when you're in the messy middle, it is very, very hard to see
Mm-hmm.
that it's going to be okay on the other side, because you can only, and again, as I said on before we came on air, I googled, will I ever be happy again? That's how bad things were. And when you're in that place, it's very, very difficult
Yeah.
to understand that there are things we can do to help ourselves to move it along. But the first thing we have to do is surrender. And that's, so anybody that comes to me, it's going through that. The first thing I'm saying to them is, you need to rest. You need to rest and repair.
Yeah.
You can't go from burnout to happy again in a
Yeah.
quantum leap. You have to let yourself surrender into, this is where you are right now, and like give yourself the grace and the time to recover from
Mm.
whatever. But the other thing I was going to say, you said, I don't know how I got across the two lanes. I do. You are surrounded by angels, lovely, and
Mm.
you have been all along. Whether maybe angels is not a thing you believe in, but you're
Yeah.
certainly surrounded by positive universal vibes that
Yeah.
they're going, yeah, no, it's not your time yet. We have
But it
things for
was
you
all
to
that
do.
question, what have I still got to do that I haven't done, that I'm being held here to
Yeah.
do? And I think, I'm slowly beginning to understand the thing. I mean, our big dream, if you were feeling audacious, would be to open a holistic healing center. I
Me
know.
too.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Which is why it's been fascinating trying out all these different modalities.
Yeah.
There are so
Yeah.
many incredible things, and I just go and experience them. And I
Yeah.
always think, there are some people who are like, oh no, 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 no. They're sort of blinded to anything like that. But the way through is to be open-minded, to listen to other people's opinions, because who are we to think that our opinions are correct?
No,
Uh,
absolutely.
it's like religion, everyone has different beliefs, but then no beliefs are any more important or less important than the other. And so it's listening, and isn't that interesting, rather than bar humbug, that's a load of rubbish. So um, be open to trying something different. People often turn to homeopathy when everything else has failed, because, and the bad press that homeopathy gets. Well, I brought my 4 children up on it, and I'm sorry, but a babe in arms does not know what you're giving it. And if you
Yeah.
can bring a fever down within an hour, I'm on board with that. Uh, and animals, they don't know what you're giving them, and they don't know about placebo. These things work, but if you're not on that pathway, that's grand. That's grand. You know,
Absolutely.
do what's right for you.
And you? Yeah.
Everyone's got to take um, control of their own beliefs when it comes to health and everything.
Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. 100% agree. Kristen, thank you very much. We're going to finish with the last three questions. You can answer one, two, or three, whichever, entirely up to you. Favorite book, favorite phrase, or what you would tell your younger self.
So, my favorite book for many reasons. There's a book called You're a Badass by Jen Sincero, and it was sent to me. It was one of my early calls in Tropic, and somebody had obviously said something that triggered me, and I kind of went off camera and I burst into tears. I'm a hypersensitive. Anyway, one of the ladies on the call who I didn't know found out my address and sent me this book. And it's Jen Sincero, You're a Badass. And just the fact that she took time out and inside she wrote, may you soon see and admire yourself as we do. And that
Fabulous. That's
just
lovely.
really touched my soul. And I read that book. I struggle to read. I find reading quite difficult, but I have audiobooks, and I've listened to a lot of those. And I remember a meditation that Lisa Murtry put me on was Abraham Hicks, so Esther Hicks. Everything is working out for me. Because I'd wake in the night sometimes and just sheer panic, and it was like the blood would stop in my veins. It was that feeling. But plugging into that, and then I'd go back to sleep. And I remember after about a year of listening to it every night, because I had broken sleep. I sleep like a baby now. Yay! I listened to it on a walk, and I was like, oh, that's happened, that's happened, that's happened. And it was weird because mostly I didn't hear it because I plugged myself in and go back to sleep. So my subconscious was hearing it, but not me in, Christian awake kind of thing. And that was one of the early ones that I listened to, which really helped me turn around as well.
Brilliant. Brilliant. And do you have a favorite phrase?
All will be well. I
All will
think
be
I'm
well.
known for all will be well.
Very good. And is there something you would tell your younger self, or do you not want to?
What other people think of you is none of your business.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Totally agree. Totally agree.
Yeah, being a people pleaser, and it doesn't, in the long run, people aren't going to love you anymore if you break yourself trying to help them.
Yeah. For me, people pleaser is a trauma response. Somebody in your childhood made you responsible for their emotional well-being. So now you're doing it with everybody. And because you believe that's how you get love.
Yeah,
And it's not.
absolutely.
It's
No.
really not. And it
As
does,
long
it
as
just
you're
breaks you.
living your authentic true self, it doesn't really matter what they think. It's painful. It can be isolating initially, but if you know in your heart of hearts that you're doing the right thing, it doesn't matter what other people think, because no one else knows your whole story.
I love that you say initially, because I think once you start being your authentic true self, yes, initially, but then as we know, everything is vibration and everything is energy. And once you're your true authentic self, it's like you send out this ripple, and then all these people appear who have the same ideas, where um opening holistic shops or opening holistic centers, or being
We're
into
inviting
spirituality.
you on a podcast.
Or inviting.
I mean,
It's
just
that ripple
extraordinary.
effect that we bring our tribe. And I know some people have a difficulty with tribe, but I'm from Ireland. The Celts, we did live in tribes. If you go back far enough, we all lived in tribes. But I know some people find that not a great word
But
to
it's
use.
kind
But
of, like-minded people who aren't going to go,
exactly.
angels, have you lost it? Unicorns? Dragons? What are you talking about? And I'm like, yes, I'm a dragon lady.
Very good. I love his colours. He's beautiful.
Not beautiful, 3D
Oh,
printed.
gorgeous.
I know. So
Love
good.
the colours.
So good.
So yes, it is. You find like-minded people, your tribe, your vibe tribe.
Mm.
But yes, initially it can be isolating, but it is. And I think I know a lot of people are frightened with or don't like the web and stuff, the social media things. But I think that because a lot of I have people in Norway and Australia and all the rest are all into the same stuff as I am, and that's lovely because then you're not so alone.
Yeah. And
So
yeah, if it just finds one person that resonates with you wherever they are, it's worth putting yourself through that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Something I'm trying, part of me thinks I could do social media, but then when it comes to it, I don't. And it's something I want to, it's my next thing.
Looking forward to seeing that.
Thank
Christian,
you,
thank you so much
Valerie.
for your time. I really appreciated your conversation and your honesty and your vulnerability and telling us, sharing your story with us. I wish you all the best with that very amazing busy life that you have, your accountancy and Tropic, and it's
But I
still
love it.
raising forward.
So it doesn't feel like work. That's the thing.
No, no, and that's what they say. Find
Yeah.
what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life.
Yeah. Because with
Take
accountancy, it just that, because so many people get so anxious about that and dealing with the
oh,
tax.
absolutely. That would be me.
I love it. I can make a difference, and that's what I like
Yep.
doing.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thank you so much. Take good
Pleasure.
care, and we'll
Thank you.
talk again soon.
Brilliant.